All right, well, welcome back for another episode of the Chamber Podcast. My name is Rob Johnson. Joining me in the studio today is the Northfield Township Manager, Mark Lloyd. How are you, sir?
I'm great. Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
I'm excited too. I think township management, local politics, really anything in that area, at least for me, has always been something I've never really had a full grasp on, because it just seems there's not a 24/7 news cycle around it. There's not a lot of updates the same way that we might look at, state issues or federal issues, but the local issues or, the local management, those are the things that we all should be paying closer attention to. And I'm sure you agree with that. So we're going to be talking today about Northfield and a lot of the new developments that have been happening over the last few years. But I want to start with you, Mark. How does one become a township manager, and what led you to taking over in Northfield?
Well, for me, my background is all in community development, which is planning and building, code enforcement, DPW or Department of Public Works. So it was a pretty broad background. And then, economic development, I would say, is sort of has always been one of my key areas of interest, but also specialty. So pretty lucky at that. I've got, 30 years of experience in community development. The last couple have been at the township manager level. And I think what it boils down to is having that level of experience and exposure to, all the ins and outs of the, municipal governmental experience just gives you an even broader base. You can't help but pick up on parks and recreation activities, finance, other things. So the job itself has to be pretty well-rounded. And in particular, you've got to have some areas of specialty, particularly with a smaller community where, you don't have a department head or a lot of staff for every single development or activity that's going on in town. So, it's important to have had that exposure. I've just been around long enough, I think, to finally make it to that position, and it's a good place to be. It's something I always wanted to do. Always wanted to be a township manager, city manager. And so my background in development and planning and building has led me here.
As I was reading the press release when they announced you as the new township manager, I was doing a little bit of research and found that you'd also spent some time in California in Orange County. So I'm just curious, kind of the breakdown of how you go from West Coast to the Midwest.
Well, actually, it was Midwest to West Coast, back to the Midwest. I was born here in Michigan. I was a Lake Fenton High School graduate. Frankly, went out to California to get my education. It was as simple as that. Did my year residency, and school was very affordable under those circumstances. You're a California resident, at least at the time. And I knew that, and I worked towards that. I got out there, got my education in urban geography. Spent 20 years in Southern California, Orange County, as a matter of fact, working in the same field, community development. Rose through the ranks there pretty quickly. It was really a lot of fun, pretty fast-track career out there. Had a couple of wonderful children and another one on the way, and my wife, who is a Southern California native, she decided, not decided, but started talking about her interest in moving to Michigan because we'd visited a few times. My family was here, of course. And so I kept saying, really? Are you sure about this? And
did you all visit in the wintertime?
Yeah, I'm telling you, February, as a matter of fact.
Wow.
At least one time.
Yeah,
and it wasn't warm. And so she, surprisingly to me, to be honest, it was a surprise. But, I was fortunate enough to meet people during, at conferences and different things. And I came back here, I should say, wanting to raise my family. I truly loved the Midwestern values. I wanted to instill them in my children, give them those opportunities right here in Brighton. And, I started out in a private firm, McKenna Associates in Northville. See, I'll say Northville. You don't say Northville.
Yeah,
I'll say Northville for you.
Yeah.
Anyway, I did. I started my career in planning there, spent a couple years, went to Ann Arbor. So, but California was great because there was a lot of competition out there. We wanted to bring development into our communities out there. We literally competed with our neighboring communities to do that. We found opportunities to help them. We worked to facilitate development coming into town. When I got here in Michigan, I found that, frankly, it seemed, and like I said, I went to Ann Arbor, that communities weren't necessarily as excited about attracting business so much, and there was a little more, NIMBYism, not in my backyard kind of approach to things. And so, it fit. And I think things have evolved since then because, that's where the tax bases are, is in development, in local government in Michigan. So I think it suited me well. It worked. It fit into my career plans, and things have just gone well since.
So when did you take over Northfield Township, the manager position? When did that become official?
Yeah, it was November 2021.
Okay. So coming up on, just crossing 2 years.
Yep, just got 2 years.
So what is that like? Just kind of give everyone a rundown, because I imagine they're like, all right, they go through a vetting process. Who hires the township manager? Yeah,
the Township Board of Trustees, conducts the interviews. They use the Michigan Municipal League to do their search, and they pretty broad cast for, sending out, attracting prospective applicants. And so, that process, township's kind of small, so they use the services of the Michigan Municipal League. They came in, they helped, and that's how that process worked.
So you're chosen for the position. You make it through all the rounds. What is day one like as a township manager? Is it like, all right, well, how do you determine? I imagine what you could do is probably damn near limitless. Like, how do you determine what you're going to work on first?
That's actually a great question. I wasn't expecting that, but thanks for asking it, because
I'm just curious.
No, it's great. It's wonderful that you've asked, because it's a great township board, and there was an awful lot of support. They'd been a little bit of time without a manager, and of course that meant that they all had to kind of roll up their sleeves and get involved. And I think they might have been getting a little tired of having to do that. But when I got on board, one of the coolest things was that I had a whiteboard there that they had set up. Oh, geez, it's 4 foot by 6 foot, maybe 4 by 8. And it had probably 40 different tasks and different things that they had been looking at that, they hadn't been able to cross off their list of things that they wanted to accomplish, whether it was economic development, improve the park, address issues with the office environment, whatever the case is. So there was a few handfuls of activities there. So I literally just made a list, wrote them out, and just prioritized them for myself, kind of looking at those things that I knew I could do well. I wanted some short-term wins, frankly. I thought it was important to get in there and get some of these things, checked off the list. And I was able to do that. And then, I sure as heck haven't gotten through all of that yet, because there's been just a few more things that have gotten added to that list, like tenfold of what I walked into. But, that made coming in and getting started easy. Of course, getting to know staff, getting to know the community, getting to know some of the businesses was one of the top priorities. But that list of things to do really helped.
Was there much job shock on day one or in that first, let's say, 90-day period, or was it relatively easy to transition into, being that you have a lot of experience in that area?
Well, I think, the latter part of what you said, the experience really did help. I can't deny it, but I have to say that the folks there were very accommodating, very receptive. The folks, in the staff that was working there, the community members who were around, who visited businesses and so on. There was a real interest in getting a leader on board over there, and there was hope that they would be able to move a number of things forward. And so, had a lot of support, and that helped a lot. The shock was minimal because, as you said, I spent a good amount of time out in Southern California, big, fast-paced environment. Definitely not a big nor a fast-paced environment here in Northfield, but similarly, having spent time just down the road in Ann Arbor City, that was pretty fast paced, pretty,
Oh yeah.
Complicated, a lot of complex kinds of development projects and procedures, frankly. So things were toned down considerably from a lot of what I had been used to. So coming into that, I knew I could carry that load. And I knew I could also contribute with new ideas, new approaches, new techniques. And that's worked out well so far.
I love that. So I want to talk about some of the missions and initiatives that you've been tasked with and some of the things you've been championing. One of the things is this grant that was awarded for some parklands in Northfield there. So walk me through how that even came to be. How that, I know these are the land was for sale and then there was some grants available, and then talk about what you've turned it into and what's on the roadmap for that.
Sure thing. I was lucky enough to walk into the township. They had already purchased the property about 6 years earlier, but they hadn't been able to really do anything about it. And the Parks and Recreation folks in town that were, actively involved in that, one of the board members, the treasurer, as a matter of fact, really pushed the effort to reach out to the Michigan Department of Natural Resources and put together an application for funding non-motorized trails. And we were awarded that. And it was after I got there when we got the award. And it was shortly after that the township had received some America Rescue Plan funding, COVID money. And so we were able to there was a requirement for a match. So we got $300,000 from the Michigan Department of Natural Resources Trust Fund, and we added another $130,000 to that to do this first phase of the non-motorized trail development. It's a 26-acre park. It's on Main Street. Part of it's across the street with 200 feet of frontage on Whitmore Lake, and it doesn't get a lot better than that. It's really pretty impressive to have all that. So there's great opportunities in the future as we go forward. Some of them will cost a lot more money to get going on. If we do a pier or a beach or something out there, that'll be pretty expensive. But we're starting with the basics, got a parking lot, got a driveway, got a trail system. And then from that grant, we also went to and this was after I got there, we decided to keep that ball rolling and went down to the good folks at the Washtenaw County Parks and Recreation, and we received a grant there, a $250,000 grant from Washtenaw County for what's called Connecting Communities. And what we did was we took the trail that we had already designed. It hadn't even been built yet. It's a paved trail. And we took it around to the backside of the park along the 23 freeway south over to Barker, where we had a play path out there. It was pretty cool, actually, this play path. There's a series of games and things that children can play, and adults too, for that matter. But, you've got an area where you can play tic-tac-toe. There's color things to jump on, match the leaves, find things. There's some musical areas and stuff. It's pretty cool. So we're taking it out of the park and over to that existing Barker Road play path, and then that ran down to the middle school, and so we've got, what did we get, $250 for that, and then we match that with another $120, and so you can tell we're really starting to build our funding sources up, and now we're working towards. I might as well segue this on for you, but you probably weren't expecting this. But what I'll say is that we also found out that in and around that park area, in the back side of that, we've got some limitations in the township's sewer system, the sewer utility. And so we're out looking at, well, how can we expand that? Because we're at capacity. And so the one thing that we're going to do is expand that sewer system. We've contracted with the company to do that. They've done the surveying already. And what we're going to do there is go not only from the park to the connecting trail over to Barker, but then we're going to take it from Barker up north along the 23 on the west side up to 8 Mile to connect us to the MDOT park and ride up there at Lehman and 8 Mile.
Okay.
And then right across the street from that'll be a connection, of course, but right across the street from that is Livingston County and Green Oak Township. And that's where one of the terminus is for the Lake to Lakes Trail. So what we're hoping to do through combining all of these efforts, including our sewer project, we're looking to get an easement and build that trail system, the non-motorized trail, right along our new sewer line that we'll put in, and just try to keep that thing growing and providing more access, getting people into our downtown, allowing people from the community to use that greater trail system without having to ride along roadways. They'll be on the, pretty safe trail system out there, and very cool. I mean, it runs through great areas.
I love that. What astonishes me as you're talking is how much inner workings there are in Northfield's not terribly big. You talked about Ann Arbor and obviously Brighton, and Northfield's smaller in comparison, but how much goes into the planning of that and how it can be connected to so many different surrounding areas. I'm sure it's a lot to keep straight, and also a lot to think about in terms of what can we do next in this park, or how can we connect with another town here to benefit businesses. Or I know residential development's a really important thing for Northfield right now. So I know there's a lot to keep track of, and it's pretty amazing hearing all of this and all the things you've been able to do in just 2 years.
Well, one of the things we try to do is to, encourage any new development that's coming in to help the township with, the whatever that a public service or a public benefit might be that they could add. And one thing right now that we look at seriously, of course, is the trail system. How can a new development either connect to it or somehow maybe contribute to it, whatever that might be. But the fact of the matter is that, for a long time, the state of Michigan has been working on, non-motorized trails, whether it's rail to trails programs like you might see over here in Pinckney, or, some of the trail systems that you see coming out of Brighton, running over to Kent Lake and stuff, and the larger, Lake to Lakes Trail that I mentioned earlier. I mean, we have a lot of good trail systems, and what we're doing is just finding our niche. How can we fit into that? What's either existing or what's planned? So, you just kind of pull back and you look at yourself and the geography of your own community and the possibilities that you might have. You look at those agencies like the Michigan Department of Natural Resources. You look at the County Parks and Recreation, who also have interest in developing trails, and you partner up. You use a lot of their resources, frankly. That's one of the ways that that's one of the things you need to do in a smaller community to be successful, is to find resources and to, utilize them as much as you possibly can. And the great thing is that's what they're doing. That's what they want to do. They look for those partnerships. So it really just becomes, identifying those opportunities, presenting them, getting them excited about it, and then of course, getting them to fund that development. They do a lot of the work as well, as far as maybe helping with alignment. We don't have in-house staff that helps us with the design work. We have a consulting firm, an engineering firm that we use that helps us do all of our design work, and for our trails, but also for all of our other projects, whether it's a housing project, a commercial project, whatever the case might be. They do all the review and analysis of the civil plans for that, but they've got the expertise to draw the plans, to do the construction drawings, to do the estimating, and to put things together so that, when we do go out, get a bid, it's within that same ballpark. And, we're not out there with let's say $250,000 in our pocket, but we need, $2.5 million. We're able to close in on that and keep our projects within that scope of funding that we have. So we use other experts to help us along the way. That's really the only way we can get it done.
That's tremendous. And I know we were talking a little bit in the pre-show with the DDA being disbanded in Northfield. One of the objectives was to establish a relationship with the Brighton Chamber, and we're certainly glad you've done that. And it's been a lot of fun for me to hear all of the different things that are being worked on in Northfield, and not only that, but how you were looking at using those things to benefit all the surrounding areas as well, which is going to do nothing but benefit Northfield as well.
Yeah, I was pretty fortunate, when I got into, well, in a way, when I got into Ann Arbor, they had a pretty sour relationship between the chamber there and the city. I don't know exactly why, but I just felt like that was a mistake. And so I bridged that a little bit. I went out, I started working with the folks in the chamber. And I think what it came down to is when the opportunity presented itself for me to be involved with the chamber, I just said, I picked up the phone, I said, "Hi, I'm Mark. I'm with Northfield. How you doing today?" And folks were so excited. Michelle was so excited. Folks from the chamber here were just, very enthusiastic, very supportive. They wanted to get back in touch with Northfield. They had lost that relationship over a period of time for some reason, and they wanted to reestablish it as well, almost like the other resources that I mentioned.
Yeah.
We need resources. We can't do this stuff on our own, and I knew that, especially with the DDA being gone, that, we needed that arm of economic development, of commercial business development. And so we reached out, we rekindled those relationships, and we've done a few things since. We did a business expo in conjunction with one of our farmers markets, and it was hugely successful. We had 20-some businesses in that small, wonderful town of Northfield that participated in the business expo. And so, like I said, that was quite a success. And then since that time, the next one was actually in conjunction with the Brighton Area Chamber, and that was an event that was called the What's New in Northfield. And, we had another 20 plus, and they were not all the same people. Maybe more businesses and folks who stopped in to talk with the staff. We had the meeting up in the boardroom to meet with the chamber, to just kind of get the juices flowing again, reestablish those relationships and, put a face with the names that you might have heard for a good period of time. So it, again, was very successful. And the one thing I'll say in this business is that folks do like to work together. There's a real desire for folks to work together. I think a big part of it is the simple fact that we're public agencies and we have to do things in the public. And so I believe that has a lot to do with how important it is to the different municipalities to make sure that, they are open. And when you open up and you expose yourself, and that gives other people the chance to reach out, talk about things that you might have in common that you can work together on. And that's really how things evolved with the chamber. And it's, unfortunate in some ways that you lose that funding source, if you will, that the DDA could have been for the township. But, that was going to be a little bit limited. It wasn't, tens of thousands of dollars like some DDAs, but it was a little bit of money here and there that we could have used. But, we've been able to take the money that we've essentially kept now that we're not being taxed for it by the DDA, and we're keeping those dollars and we're putting them to good use doing these programs that I mentioned. And so we also have, we reestablished a new banner program in the downtown. We've got seasonal banners that go up, 4 times a year. We actually did one for the school too, for the Whitmore Lake schools this past school season, shortly after they started class again. And then not too far after the homecoming was over, we took it down because they do a parade through town. And we thought it'd be really nice for those students, the parents, folks involved in the school to be able to drive through town, ride through town, walk through town, and see that the township had their backs, and that we were proud of them and supportive. And, it was very cool. It's a wonderful feeling to be able to do that, to reach out like that and see the smiles on people's faces.
Well, Mark, you've certainly put together an impressive body of work in the last 2 years, and I certainly appreciate your time today walking me through it all.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure, truly. I am always happy to talk about the good things that Northfield is doing, and, you'll have me back. I'll do it again.
Love to do a touch point down the road and see how much more progress you've made.
Great. Hopefully I can compel you to give me a call, and we'll get together.
I love it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, everyone, that's going to wrap up this week's edition of the Chamber Podcast. I appreciate all of you who are watching or listening. It certainly means a lot to us and the Chamber as well. Have a great week. Take care.